name is Aarin Bothra. I'm 15 years old and I live outside of Illinois or outside of Chicago in Aurora, Illinois. So an interesting fact about Illinois is that, yeah, the slide is here. So the nonprofit that I founded, I think been about like a year and a half now. It's called Seeds of Hope, and it's an environmental activism nonprofit. So about Illinois specifically, our native plants are called prairies, as many of you might have heard, and Illinois is called the Prairie State. But shockingly, we have 0.01% of our prairies left. That's a very, very, very small fraction of what we used to have. And essentially, prairie plants are very big, very tall plants. So if you can see on the right side of the screen, this is an example of a prairie plant. And as you can see, their roots go for 12 anywhere to 15 feet. They're extremely deep. And as you can see in the middle in the highlighted strip, that's what our typical lawn grass looks like. So obviously the removal of all of these prairie plants and the industrialization of Illinois in the 1800s, because of farmland, steel factories, it all has very bad repercussions for the environment. The number one issue is that it causes extreme shifts in our weather. It causes extreme flooding because prairie plants with their long roots, they kind of absorb the water, they absorb the rainfall. But instead now they're not there. So we just have regular short root plants and all of this water really pools. So even in my suburban community, which isn't like somewhere that's very prone to flooding, after large thunderstorms or like periods of rain, you can see flooding everywhere in our lawns, around the school. There's valleys that turn into huge ponds. And this is because our city is not designed to handle this kind of rain without our prairie plants. And it's a very big issue. But on top of that, the prairie plants help in purifying like agricultural runoff. They regulate drought seasons, so there's extreme droughts without them. And prairie plants are another thing called carbon sinks. Essentially, they can absorb more carbon from the atmosphere, and they provide a lot of oxygen. But without them, that kind of accelerates climate change. So that's another, all of them cause a lot of environmental issues, as you might expect, because of the loss of biodiversity. And it's an issue that I found that's deeply impacted me and my community, because even though it's such a prevalent issue in Illinois specifically and around the United States, it's not talked about. And that's something I wanted to change. I was very interested in the environment in middle school, and that's where I kind of learned about this. And I founded Seeds of Hope as I entered high school. But this issue of climate change isn't just a physical issue, but it also has mental repercussions. This is something that's also not talked about, but climate anxiety is basically youth's fear of climate change and their feeling of hopelessness, that we've kind of reached a point where we can't go backwards. And it's something that has been studied and been proven to be very prevalent in youth of our generation. So this is another issue that I tackled and that we're tackling by founding Seeds of Hope. We're trying to combat this issue of climate anxiety by giving students a way and giving community members a way to engage in their own environment and fight for combating climate change, essentially. So our solution to this issue is we are number one and foremost, we're trying to foster community action, but we're also trying to promote like environmental activism and giving people, even if it's a small little way, a way to get involved in that idea of environmental activism, that way that they can continue getting involved in our community. So the way we do this is through something called seed libraries. As the name suggests, they're boxes. They might be seen in your libraries or in your community. Essentially, they're containers that contain various types of seeds. We have ours containing 16 different drawers, and each contains a different type of prairie plant. So people can go up to one of our seed libraries and they can take seeds from them. And then we give them all the instructions and education that they need. There's posters around our seed libraries, there's instructions on our website, and you can find them and go plant them in your community. So essentially, we place these seed libraries in accessible locations because we're all about letting everyone in the community have a way to help. So we're currently in 4 locations. We're in 3 high schools in our area and 1 public library. And this year, as we move forward, we're looking to expand to upwards of 10 locations. But essentially, we restock these libraries periodically, and we also do a lot of educational events relating to native plants and environmental activism. But these are this is the main solution that we're doing to help combat climate change. So current implementation, again, this is my co-founder for Seeds of Hope. So we've currently worked with 53 students for each of our seed libraries. We have people create the seed packets, we have people create the libraries, paint sides or signs. So we've put them, as I said, in one library and three high schools, and we've donated over 8,000 seeds. I think that's closer to about like 10 to 12,000 now. But we've had a great impact with our four libraries. And it's something we've met with so many different librarians, students, teachers, environmental activists, nonprofit organizations. It's just been an absolutely amazing time. And I love to see our community come together over an issue that's not talked about, but everyone's really passionate about trying to tackle this issue. So it's something that's been very inspiring. So these are more pictures of us working with various different students and creating our different seed libraries. So this was actually a part of a pitch that I did where we were asking for $1,000 of funding. It cost us around $150 to make each seed library because of the price of native seeds and the packaging, but that money is also used towards restocking them. So our future goals, we've actually accomplished some of these. This was a pitch from last year. We are focusing on creating more seed libraries this year. We're hoping to expand and double our amount of locations. We're also hoping to expand to new chapters in Illinois on anyone who'd be interested in creating seed libraries in their location and kind of spreading through Illinois and the United States. We've been developing our educational materials. As I said, we do like to host educational events. So we've been hosting native plant seed sowing. So native plants have something called stratification, meaning that they have to be in a period of cold winter air before that they can germinate in the spring. So there's a lot of different methods. It's a little bit more involved than just planting like tomato seeds or something. You can sow them in milk jugs. You can sow them in the ground in winter. You can do it artificially through sand. So we've had different like workshops on how to do that. We've also had workshops on creating native bee homes, which is a really fun and great activity. And then we've also done a lot of different online seminars about environmental activism and things of that nature. But we're going to continue to host community events. We've partnered with our school's environmental club, but that's something that we love to do. And then as for kind of what's been going on this year, we've recently obtained funding from quite a few different sources. We recently got funding from the Lumpkin Family Foundation, which is an Illinois-based organization, and they fund environmental activist program. So we receive funding from them, and we'll be expanding our reach over the coming year as part of that. And we've been receiving grants from other areas. But those are some of our main goals. And if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
That was amazing.
So you had said something about you were going just staying out of Illinois, but you were going to go to other parts of the United States. So is that true? Is that something that
It's true. It's for this year, our focus is kind of on expanding in Illinois just because it's an issue that's so prevalent in Illinois. We've really only touched the four counties that are like near us, which is like a 25 to 30-mile radius. So with the grant that we received from the Lumpkin Family Foundation, we're focusing on East Central Illinois, which is a little bit southern of where, like south of where I live. But eventually in the future, I'd like to expand to other locations in the US because the issue of biodiversity and native plants is something that's not just like local to Illinois, it's prevalent everywhere. It's just the plants, obviously, that are changing. This concept of rain gardens, which is what a group of native plants, when they're landscaped because they absorb so much water, is called. Rain gardens can be applied in other places in the world. But yes, I do think that this is something that we'll be doing in the future.
yes, if you could. Jean?
Yes. Did you need me to do something, Jake?
Oh, no, I thought you wanted to ask a question or say something.
Oh, no, I'm just so impressed that Aarin has done this whole thing by himself along with one other person. Did you have funding besides this Lumpkin funding? Did you have funding before that?
Yes. So the project initially started, I can't even remember now. We had a grant, I think it was somewhere between 500 and $1,000. From there, we kind of started the project. We have won various different grants throughout the years. We won a T-Mobile Changemaker grant towards the start of our project, which gave us a lot of funding. And then after that, in March, we won the competition that this pitch I made was for. We won $1,000 of funding from there. And we also won fiscal sponsorship. So the people who were putting on the event, which was in our local area, they fiscally sponsored us, meaning we are like 501c3 certified through them. And they handle all of our management for that. So that was something great. And then there's a Lumpkin Family Foundation grant, and then there's a few more coming up, hopefully soon. But we definitely have enough funds to continue operating and continue expanding for the next year.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I have a question. What is the biggest obstacle or problem you've run into?
Well, there's quite a few problems. It's the number one is just people's perception. A lot of people, well, we've obviously received a lot of like great support, but it can also be kind of hard sometimes to convince people to have a seed library, because the issue of the environment is something that's very controversial for a lot of reasons that I don't necessarily see, but it is. And things like that have been issued, like a very big issue. Another issue is just funding and trying to continue the project in general. That always takes its own effort and, you know, kind of scaling and expanding. But overall, we've met with like a overwhelmingly positive response. It's just sometimes that it feels like people aren't taking the issue seriously enough when it's quite a serious issue.
Yeah, absolutely. When you decide that you want to branch into other states,
Mhm.
I personally know some people who would be very, very interested in working with you. Um,
That'd be amazing. Yeah. Hopefully it's in the near future that we're able to expand. But I will definitely let you know, because I'd love to continue expanding throughout the US.
but the other issue then is you're going to also have to be dealing with different types of plants that you may not be familiar with.
Yes. So what we did for Illinois also, because I don't really like, I know I've learned a lot about native plants, but we actually consulted with like a naturalist, which is someone who specializes in native plants in this issue here, and she was able to tell us a lot more about the types of plants and the kind of growing materials. So that's something I'd like to replicate if we do expand to other states, which would be meeting with someone who's familiar with the local environment, and can tell us what would be the best seeds to plant and to promote environmental activism.
But it's not only state by state. There are,
Yeah,
small
it's by region.
environments. I mean, you can
Yeah.
go 20 miles and it's a different environment.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes, that's definitely true. For Illinois, it's not easy, but it's a little bit better because a lot of our plants, the prairie plant, they are native to the entire state at once, or large portions of the state. And since we're still expanding in like a small area, a lot of the plants are the same. And there's a lot of great research in Illinois about prairies. There's where we buy our seeds from is called Prairie Moon Nursery. They sell a huge variety of native seeds, and they have quite a like comprehensive list of resources. So in other states, that definitely things that's like an issue we would encounter, but it's something that we try to overcome.
I
Yeah.
know someone who also does, he goes to Washington and he lobbies for groups like yours, and I could put you in touch with him and he might have a spot where he could help lobby for this cause.
That would be amazing. I would love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the issue of legislation is also a really big issue. I'm actually a part of my local youth advisory council, so we work under our representative for our district. So I'm currently working on a bill about artificial turf, but I think the issue of legislation and environmental legislation in particular is very important. So I would really appreciate that.
Yes, we'll definitely share that with you.